Here's how I made my Louise Carmen inspired road book. So what we'll need for our supplies are as follows. We want a grommet kit that's preferably 2 millimeters. We want a girly pop hammer, your elastic cord of choosing. I just bought a pack on Amazon. Some charms if you'd like, a tape measure, ruler, and your leather, preferably vegetable dyed leather, so it patinas really nicely with use. For my measurements, I did 8.5 in height and 17 in length for a little bit extra room. You're going to mark that out however you choose, and we can cut it. If you're at all anxious like I am, feel free to practice on the excess we won't need. I chose to do that. Once I felt comfortable with my skill, I started cutting. This process is a little time consuming, so just take your time, be patient, and don't rush yourself. Once you're done, we can burnish the edges. This is totally optional, but it gets rid of those frayed pieces from cutting it. It just smoothens them out a little bit. So I'm practicing on just some excess right here. And then I'm doing my actual journal. Now we want to find the binding of our journal. So this is up to your preference. If you have your notebooks that you know you want to put in it, I recommend doing this, putting them in, seeing how you want it to overlap. And then you'll want to trace where that bottom notebook rests against the leather. For my desired setup, I want mine 5.5 inches from the left edge. Here I'm marking out where I want my grommets. So I want the first row 5 millimeters from the edge, and then the second row on top, another 5 millimeters above that. You'll need a hammer and your grommet punch. I'm making the first hole at that 5.5 inch mark. 5 millimeters from that, I'm making my second hole. Honestly, you don't have to be too meticulous on this part. And then another 5 millimeters from that, the third hole. Make sure you do this on a cutting board, or else you'll put a hole through your table. Here you can see I've added the second row, which is 5 millimeters above the first. And then just repeat on the top. Now we can actually add in our grommets. So flipping over the leather to the outside, we want to take our grommet, put it on this little poker, and we're going to push it through each hole. We want the fat end of the grommet facing the outside of the journal. So the fat side out, skinny side in, like that. And repeat for each hole. Once all grommets are in, we can begin hammering. Just double check that you put them in right, fat side on the out, skinny side on the in. So we'll need the puncher again, and then this little base tool. Essentially, we want to line up the fat side of the grommet with that base. I am using the poker thing to kind of line it up. Take your time on this. It's a little frustrating, especially since they're so small. Here's flash for better lighting. So I'm using the poker to kind of guide the grommet onto the base. Once I feel it kind of latch in, we're ready to hammer. So now that we're hammering it, it'll look like so. That means it's in and secured, and then repeat for all 12 grommets. Once that's done, we can now create the binding. So here I'm heavily debating between the red and the blue. I love both, but I went with red. We want to cut 3 cords. I did about 1.5 lengths of the journal. We want it a little on the tight side so the notebooks will sit really securely in the journal. To thread them, we're going to go from the inside of the journal on that bottom grommet out, and then back in on the grommet above it. Here I'm struggling a little bit. These are really small, so a little frustrating. And then back out on the top. And here's where you'd add your charms. You can thread them right on that, and then thread the cord back into the journal on that very top grommet, like that. Once you've done that, we can tie it off. Again, it's going to be tight and the leather will bow. This is what we want. And repeat that step 2 more times. Now we can add in our journal. So you're going to want to take your journal, find the middle of it, grab your cord, slide it into the middle of your journal, and it's nice and secure. Don't forget to cut off the loose ends like I did. Here's a quick haul of my charms. I really love them. Now we're going to want to put 2 more grommets in for the back binding. And here's what it will look like. So I really freehand this. I didn't measure, but you want to find the median of both the height and width and make them 1 centimeter apart. And I'm going to do it quickly off camera. Now we'll add the final binding. So from the inside of your journal, we're going to thread it out And we can add a charm here if we'd like. I opted for one. And then you're gonna thread that on and then thread it back into the journal. And it should look kind of like that. And then we can tie it off and then cut off the excess. And here's what we're working with so far. So you could stop right here, but I like the rounded edges, so stay tuned for that. So now we have our hammer and our rounding tool. Again, I got this off Amazon. This is size 20. Sorry, this is a really bad angle, but you essentially want to line it up with the edges like that. And then you're going to hammer it. It doesn't take too much elbow grease. It comes off pretty easily. And that is the tutorial. I hope you guys try it out and let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. Bye.